It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the 4 films of May 11th, 2007. And this was actually one of the quieter weekends in general. Even though we got 4 movies, we had movies that weren't necessarily as big as some of the big blockbusters we're eventually going to delve into here, but we do have a sequel to one of the more groundbreaking horror movies of the last 10 years, an ensemble with Jane Fonda, Felicity Huffman, and Lindsay Lohan, a war comedy starring Larry the Cable Guy, and an ensemble with a ton of people you're very familiar with, but this is a film that clearly feels like it was dumped out in theaters, and we'll eventually delve into that one in a little bit. But before we get to any of those, let's talk about the biggest new release of the weekend, because this really was not a big hit in general. The sequel to 28 Days Later, which is 28 Weeks Later.
2003, 28 Days Later redefined the apocalyptic thriller. Now, what are you afraid of?
What if it comes back?
Days turn to weeks, and the threat is everywhere. If it comes back, we kill it.
It's probably nothing.
28 weeks later.
So 28 Weeks Later is set after the events of the first film, depicting the events of NATO military forces to salvage a safe zone in London, and the consequence of 2 young siblings breaking protocol to find a photograph of their mother, and the resulting reintroduction of the rage virus into the safe zone. On paper, this seems like a sequel that feels rather pointless. I mean, 28 Days Later kind of wrapped its story up very well, and didn't really feel the need to continue the storyline in another movie, unless you had Danny Boyle behind it, which we don't get it here, but we will get it eventually, as it will come out later this summer with 28 Years Later. But as far as this movie goes, I'll be honest. I was expecting it to be a whole lot worse, but I don't know, I thought it was pretty good. It's definitely not the first movie, but I do like that they have some elements that I still thought was really cool. I did like the way they kind of reintroduced the rage virus back into this whole thing, and how everybody kind of handles the situation when they find out that the virus is back, and like it doesn't feel like a here we go again type of storyline here. I like the cast that they have in here. You got Robert Carlyle, Rose Byrne, Jeremy Renner, Idris Elba, Imogen Poots, Harold Perrineau from Lost, Catherine McCormick. A lot of really good talent in this movie in general, and yeah, it does kind of fall into some predictable territory here and there, but at the same time, it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. I thought it was just going to be like another generic horror sequel that they just made for the quick buck, which they probably did make this for the quick buck, but you could tell that the people that were involved in this were at least trying to do a story that was very much in line with the first film, but not be a repeat of the first film. There are new elements they add to it that I thought worked very well. Not everything about it worked overall, but I'll give it credit that it was much better than I ever thought it was going to be. I thought it was just going to be another been there, done that type of sequel, but instead it actually allows for a movie that is very entertaining, and doesn't quite have the same spark as the first movie does, but it is a lot better than I would have given it credit for if I had not seen it beforehand. So I thought it was pretty good. 28 Weeks Later. So with that said, let's go ahead and move on to our next movie, Lindsay Lohan, Jane Fonda, and Felicity Huffman starring in Georgia Rule.
Evil. Makeup helps.
In this family, you live here, you work. Attitude
No wonder Mom hates you.
doesn't skip a generation.
No fighting! She was raised in California.
Georgia Rule, rated R, tomorrow.
One of Lindsay Lohan's 2 really bad movies in 2007, and yet this isn't the one that killed her career. No. We'll get to the second one a little bit later on in the summertime, but in this movie, she stars as Rachel, who comes to stay with her grandmother Georgia for the summer, leaving some obvious problems behind at home. Her alcoholic mother, played by Felicity Huffman, doesn't even stay the night before, rushing out back to California to be with her husband. Rachel shakes up the town, a beautiful girl in the boring Mormon country. Then she reveals her deepest secrets to one of her new friends, and her mother comes rushing back to find out if it's true. In the midst of a crisis, the 3 women become closer than ever and start to understand each other more. That's good to know, because certainly the story has no idea what it was to understand, because man, this movie is really, really bad. It's not because of the actors. The actors overall are fine. They're doing what they need to do here, even though this film was heavily criticized by the head of Morgan Creek Productions, who literally threatened to sue Lindsay Lohan because she was causing such a problem behind the scenes. This was around the time when, you know, she was out partying a lot and getting drunk all the time and being a nuisance on sets, and Robinson literally called her a spoiled child. Like, that's what it really felt like. And he just really felt like, you know, this promise that Lindsay Lohan had a couple years ago was just slowly starting to fade away. And yeah, as much as this movie is trying its best to hold it together on the performances overall are the best thing about the movie. But everything else, the story really is a mess. It's a sloppy storyline. It really doesn't have a good balance of comedy and drama. There's no life lesson to be learned here that really makes a whole lot of sense. And it just doesn't work as a whole. It's a film that is really, really lazily put together. I mean, even this poster that I'm looking at right now looks incredibly fake. I mean, just look at this. Look at this. I mean, just look at this. Look at the faces. Look at how they don't match the bodies whatsoever. Like, that's not a good sign if you're trying to sell this movie and you can't even make the faces look like they're actually on the people's bodies. These look like they were pictures that were literally taken somewhere else, and they just plastered it onto the poster and sold it off as an official poster. That does not look like a real poster whatsoever. But lo and behold, it actually is.
I'm often asked what makes a hero. Courage, selflessness, sacrifice.
Somebody said a hero? Meet the Weekend Warriors. If there was ever a worse excuse for a soldier, I'd like to meet him.
Hey there, Sarge. Snap into a Slim Jim.
We just got our orders. Sarge, you're supposed to go home tomorrow.
Yeah, and on Mondays I cut the grass.
Wrong, sunshine. We're going to paradise, the land of sand and sun.
Hey, do you want a beach?
Fallujah, Iraq.
If I'm on die tomorrow, I want to get a good night's sleep.
Good night. We're overloaded. Get ready to dump the gear.
This is it. Iraq.
Oh, man.
We're in Iraq. What in the name of Siegfried and Roy are you fellas doing?
Don't ask. Don't tell.
Iraqi insurgents.
Now the battle is on.
Hold your fire! Right, I'm gonna fire! Islamo, let's get out of here!
There's just one little problem.
What's it funny?
You're not in Iraq, gringo! Oh my God! We invaded Mexico.
That is literally the plot of the movie. They think they're going to Iraq, but no, they accidentally land in Mexico and think it's Iraq. Are you laughing yet? I mean, I can't believe there's a movie that actually makes In the Army Now look like a much better war comedy than by comparison. When three small-town National Guardsmen bound for Iraq are unknowingly dropped into Mexico, their confusion leads to liberate a small village from a band of corrupt federales. That's literally the plot of the movie, and yeah, this movie is pretty lame. And I say pretty lame, but no, it's really lame. This movie sucks, man. I mean, it's no real shocker why it sucks in general, because, yeah, the plot makes no sense whatsoever. The three actors in here have no chemistry whatsoever. Two of them work for the Blue Collar Comedy Tour, and you would think they would have some chemistry here, but no, they don't. Everybody in here is half-assed it. They're only making this because Larry the Cable Guy's last movie was a big success. They have no intention on making a good movie. They just know that idiot rednecks will go out to see this movie, and lo and behold, they did. This film did not, I mean, this film wasn't a big hit in general, but the budget on this couldn't have been that big enough to keep making these movies, because they made more of these movies with Larry the Cable Guy in them, and, yeah, they get even stupider from here, which is hard to believe, but, yeah, sad to say, but true, but, it's not even a funny comedy, man. It's not even a movie that's trying to be like a satire or something like The Three Amigos, or a mix of it's trying to be like a mix of that, plus The Magnificent Seven, plus Full Metal Jacket, except all those were much better movies by comparison, and it's not even, I don't even need to explain why those were much better movies, and the film just sucks. Do I really need to go on and say anything more about it? It's a terrible movie. Nothing is funny about it whatsoever. There's nothing of value to it. It's Delta Farce. What more do you have to expect from this? Now let's get to our last film here, which is a comedy you do expect a lot more of, considering the talent on board here, but, yeah, prepare to be extremely disappointed. This is The X.
Let's take a nice deep breath.
Mom! Answer the phone and don't come down here. I'm having a session.
Yeah, the exercises I'm studying are a little new agey, so I hope you guys will just trust me and roll with it.
In the world of advertising, Tom Riley was on the fast track.
Our new assistant associate creator,
Tom Riley.
it's Sunburst. The yes ball gets thrown around the office.
Go on! Until the day.
Come on, buddy. You're gonna jump for those.
I haven't been able to, Tom, since I was 5.
This is the guy you're going to be working with.
Is the man Chip Sanders rolled into town.
You married Sophia Kowalski. Well, I'm looking at.
Thanks.
Do you earn her love every single day?
What's this Chip guy?
We were in cheerleading together.
Let me tell you what you are. L-O-S-E-R.
See, with Delta Force, you know what you're going into. Either you know what you're going into, or you're just really not that stupid to think that there's going to be some value to it. This one you expect a whole lot more from. In this movie, you have Sophia, played by Amanda Peet, who's an attorney, and Tom, played by Zach Braff, a cook, who has a hard time holding a job. When their first child is born, they agree that she'll be a full-time mother, and he'll get a promotion. When he gets fired, he takes a job in Ohio working at an ad agency where her father, played by Charles Grodin, is assistant director. Tom's decided to report to Chip, played by Jason Bateman, a competitive, hard-driving guy who's in a wheelchair and who's Sophia's ex-boyfriend from high school. Chip still carries a torch for her, but so he convenes to make Tom's work life miserable. As Tom's frustration mounts, it may be that Sophia will take Chip's side. Is Tom doomed to fail yet again? Are you really that stupid that you're going to do this plot here and not expect us to laugh one bit? Everything you expect in this movie is in this film, and for a movie that has Charles Grodin in his first film since freaking Clifford of all things, and It Runs in the Family in 1994. I expect a whole lot more than this, and just from everybody involved in here, because not only do you have Zach Braff, Amanda Peet, Charles Grodin, Jason Bateman, you also have Mia Farrow, Donald Logue, who was done on Grounded for Life, Amy Poehler, Amy Adams, Fred Armisen. Just that cast list right there should be in a much better movie than this pile of garbage. And this is a pile of garbage movie, and not shocking, this is directed by the same guy that did Our Idiot Brother, which is another movie that wastes a lot of really good talent in there, and is a movie that is not funny whatsoever and is completely lame. But at least that one was trying. This one just falls right into territory that we've seen done to death all over again. And the whole movie is just leading up to absolutely nothing. They go back to square one right from the get-go. And it's just like, why were we even here to begin with? You just wasted an hour and a half of our time on something that makes no sense whatsoever, leads to absolutely nothing whatsoever. So what's the point? Why am I sitting in a movie theater watching this garbage if this is all you're going to amount to? Honestly, like, what does this movie have to offer anybody? Nothing. And yet again, this is another movie that Zach Braff, he started his film career off so strong with Garden State, and then he does The Last Kiss, and then this movie, and you can see why his film career kind of crashed and burned after this. And it's just like, I want this guy to star in more funny movies, man. I think Zach Braff is very funny. I mean, I've talked about it before. I like this guy a lot as an actor, but every time I see him in a movie like this, it just feels like he's the wrong person for the role. He's being there to just play a one-note character that's nothing of value to him whatsoever, and it just doesn't work out in any of the movies he's done since Garden State. It's a terrible film, a big steaming pile of garbage. It's an even bigger disappointment than Delta Force just because of who's involved in here. This film deserved a much better story for everybody in here to be in this sort of predicament, but this is pure garbage. This is absolute 100% garbage. One of the worst comedies I've ever seen. Avoid it like the plague. It's a terrible film. I absolutely hate this movie, The X. And so, with all of that said, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies, and the next time we meet, we'll take a look at two more big summer blockbusters. Well, okay, one big summer blockbuster. The third installment of the Shrek series, Shrek the Third, which, after the first two movies, you expect to see a film that's on the same level, if not better than the last movie. And, it's not, but we'll tell more to that next time. And we'll also take a look at Once, this musical film that kind of came out of nowhere and went on to become one of the more successful films of the year, and actually did go on to win an Academy Award for Best Original Song. Really good movie, and we'll delve more into those two films coming up on tomorrow's show, so be on the lookout for that. But with all of that said, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this. And if you did, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification button, and the bell, because you get updates on when new videos come out, and we do post here every day. Also, check out our playlist here and the previous episode I did. With all that said, I am off. I will see you guys next time, and until then, as always, take care.